Hi, and welcome back to the Inside of My Head, where I've been having a really hard time boiling this list down to just 5, as there are quite a few kaiju featured in the Pacific Rim universe that kind of just come and go, but are so visually distinctive that you can't help but want more. So I couldn't fit them all in, but don't worry, I'll do an honorable mention at the end of the vid. But for now, hit like on the video, get subscribed, and let's get stuck right into my 5 kaiju that we need to see more of. And I'm gonna start with the kaiju only known as the Meridian City Kaiju. Now, I love the way this guy looks. This slow-moving, lumbering Hulk definitely leaves an impression, but he's not even in the show long enough to warrant the producers giving him a name, and that's a crime! He's only in it for one scene, attacking the school bus Haley and Joel are on, as multiple breaches are opening up all over the Australian continent and forcing Meridian City and all the other cities to be evacuated. Luckily, Hunter Vertigo steps in and freezes him with its shoulder-mounted cryo cannon before shattering him with its own spike. You see, this guy can shit out a spike from the palm of its hand, which it can use to stab or hammer its opponent, if it so chooses. I've been stabbing people a lot with my spike lately. I think today's a hammery day. Hammer, 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 hammer! Because of the brevity of its appearance, we never get to find out any details about this guy, what category he is, if he has any other abilities other than the shitting out spike thing. And that's a shame, because just look at him. Look at him. Next up, Faux Face, one from the early pages of the graphic novel Aftermath. This is the first ever Category 4 kaiju, and the only one that I can think of at least to have a two-headed design like this. It attacked the city of Santiago before being challenged by Mark III Vulcan Spectre. It has a spiked tail that looks kind of like barbed wire with spikes jutting out in all directions, as well as these 3 long spikes coming off of its head and body. The story goes that the two-headed kaiju was rampaging through the city, stomping on wildlife, but ignoring passing by civilians. And I'm guessing this thing wasn't the most perceptive because Vulcan Spectre managed to sneak up on it and put it in a chokehold, nearly crushing its windpipe. Faux Face managed to rip chunks off Vulcan's back with its tail, but Vulcan Spectre managed to charge up its meteor fists and hit it with an uppercut, which burnt a hole straight through it. Then, after another exchange, Vulcan fired off a salvo of missiles, which ignited Faux Face's internal organs on fire, cooking its innards and finishing it off. Aside from this stuff, not much else is known about Faux Face, but this design surely warrants a bit more time in the spotlight, don't you think? I think so. Next up, Spine Jackal, another Cat 4 opponent of Vulcan Spectre in Aftermath. Spine Jackal is a tall, grey-skinned kaiju with the usual bioluminescent traces emitting from its mouth and eyes. It's got multiple rows of teeth as well as these tooth-lined mandibles. Wait, are those 2 eyes at the back of its throat? It walks upright with these long arms and long spikes on its back, and the most interesting thing about it is that this guy has got panoramic vision from the abundance of eyes around its head, enabling it to see front, sides, and back all at once. This one seems to present more of a challenge for the PPDC than Faux Face did, as it takes both Vulcan Spectre, which is no pushover as it's a Mark III, and Mark V Strike Eureka to bring it down, with Striker eventually ripping the blades off a wind turbine and throwing it like a giant ninja star to cut the top of its fucking head off. Next up, ITAC. I spoke about this guy in my last video, and although he did get a fair portion of the spotlight in Tales from the Drift, I would still love to see more of him. Actually, forget I said that. That band sucked ass. I would even argue that I would have preferred to have ITAC as the main villain in Tales from the Drift instead of Ragnarok, which to me was just lazy creature design. I think it's the jet black color, but ITAC occasionally reminds me of the Alien Queen. Much larger, obviously, but I really love the blade protruding from its head and the way the jaw is composed with these kind of gaps here. It's awesome. It's never revealed what category ITAC is, but considering its attack on Tokyo was only 4 weeks after the Onibaba attack, Onibaba being a category 2, and 2 weeks before the Ragnarok attack, Ragnarok also being a Cat 2, it's probably a safe assumption to say that ITAC is a Cat 2 as well. And considering that it took both Tacit Ronin and Coyote Tango to bring this thing down, this thing was a pretty tough cookie that I would love to see some more life breathed into, either in animated or live action form. Whatever, I'll take what I can get. And the top spot goes to, and this might be a bit of a curveball, Karloff! You think I'm joking? I ain't joking. So this might be a surprise to a few of you who saw my Tales from Year Zero review, as you'll know that I wasn't exactly a huge fan of this guy. And honestly, that hasn't really changed. The design of this guy just just doesn't do it for me. I have since seen some artwork that makes him look a lot more menacing, but I still can't get over how much he reminds me of an Ent or of Groot. Oh, and who the hell made Groot porn? And why the hell did I Google it? He's pretty skinny compared to the other kaiju and doesn't really seem to have that many offensive assets going for him. These things usually sporting rows of teeth or having spiked barbs everywhere. This guy just doesn't. However, Karloff is absolutely pivotal in the history of the Pacific Rim universe as the first kaiju to ever be killed by a Jaeger, a prototype called Brawler Yukon, and that's a story I would love to see told in live action and fleshed out properly. I think a big part of the problem is that we just haven't gotten a proper look at him, and with a bit of effort in a live action adaptation, he could be made to look pretty cool. And even if they don't change the design in any way, we would at least get a better understanding of his strengths and abilities. And I'm not saying he should be the main bad guy at the climax of a movie or anything. I'm just saying that this is such a big event in the Pacific Rim timeline that we need to see it properly done and not just covered in a couple of panels in Tales from Year Zero. So those would be my top 5 kaiju that I would want to see more of, and my honorable mentions would be Yamarashi, just because he's been mentioned a few times now and all we've got to see of him is this dude's sleeve tattoo. Kaisep was one that I really wanted to see what the rest of his body looks like, considering that he's only really shown in the slide of a presentation right here. And last but not least, the hardest one for me to leave off my list was this guy, Hardship, who's essentially just Mutavor with a bladed head, who we see in the opening montage of the original movie. He fights with Romeo Blue before being used as inspiration for a shoe and a toy line. Now, I really like the design of this guy. Way more than Mutavor, in fact. Anyway, you guys, let's leave it there for now. Get in the comments and let me know which kaiju you want to see more of. Make sure you're subscribed and let me kindly invite you to get out of my head. And I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much. Cheerio. Bye.